So I'm Jaimi Jansen, and what we're going to do is we're going to answer questions. I have Jayson Madani of Madani Real Estate, and then Reno of Greenspan, and then myself, who's done a lot of research on the cleaning. And also, I'm trying to be a resource, but I don't know everything. And I'm kind of navigating this with you. I have a damaged property. I have a partial loss. And so I can share my experience of what that's like. But I also know that there's some dwellings that I want to rebuild on my property, which is why I brought the realtor and also a public adjuster. Okay, so this is a completely free service. I am just a community member who is committed to advocate for the community because it's super important to me. I live in Bonnie Doon, and it's just really tragic what took place, and I want to be able to help rebuild my community. And so, if there's anything I can do to help, that's what I'm about. So, what we'll do is we'll start with Jayson. He'll talk a little bit, and then I can speak to hygienists. I can speak to hiring a lawyer. I can speak to different companies that you might consider using for cleaning your house, why you would want to clean your house or not. Like, I can speak to all that stuff, and maybe Reno can also talk about how you would go about talking to your adjuster if you're not going to hire a public adjuster. So that's what I can speak to, and then I'm hoping I also learned a lot. I read a lot about the permitting process and the cleanup process, and I have some information on that. But also, if we don't have your answers to your questions, what we'll do is we will write them down, and then I will find answers. I've talked to Ryan Coonerty twice, like on a more public experience than just on Facebook, and so he is a great resource. And any questions that we have for him, we can send him over. He's okay with us bombarding him with questions. That's what he's there for. So we'll do that, and I'm just going to fix this real quick so we can have a better look of. Okay. Yeah. So I have a partial loss, and I have a partial loss, and so I have more than just smoke damage on my property, and my house has more damage than what I would have thought for it to be still standing, just because there's fire retardant and everything. So I've done research to figure out how I can remediate that and how I can get the best advocates for myself. I also noticed that in this experience, people may not want to stay in Bonnie Doon, and that, as much as that's super sad, we have to do what feels right for us. The one thing that I do want to say is, like, if you're going to make a big decision like that, and I know I'm on the fence or have been on the fence, it's like you really want to pray about it, meditate on it, take some deep breaths, take some nature walks. It's this is like we're in shock still, so it's good not to make decisions right away. But I feel obligated to, just because of the kind of person I am, like, I want everyone to be super informed. So that's why I brought a realtor in, because there was somebody on Facebook who said, well, I'm a renter, my house that I was renting burned down, and if anyone wants to sell, I might be interested. So I would much rather see our community come together, and if there's going to be sales of property, I'd much rather have it be community members than people in just being investors. Yeah. I mean, that's my bias. So I love my neighbors, and I really want them to stay, and like, I want to stay because you guys are there, not because, yes, it's beautiful, or was beautiful, but really it's the community that I'm attached to. So so that's really important to me.
You can't burn that part down.
You can't burn that part down, no matter how far away we are, right? And so also there is permitting that is now taking place. If your house is still standing, or if it's not standing, and there's damage, you want to have certain codes that you're going to need to have the property kind of get to. And so we can talk about that. I'm going to let Jayson talk as much as he can about that, and then I can.
So sorry about your place.
Yeah.
Bonnie Doon,
yeah.
Santa Cruz Mountains. I grew up in Ben Lomond, so Scotts Valley areas, and Bonnie Doon, San Lorenzo Valley, Boulder Creek are lovely areas to live in. I've made a bunch of calls to the assessor's office, so I guess one of the first things I learned from them was that if you're building the same footprint, that they're gonna basically not reassess you at current market value. They're gonna keep the value of what you had before. So if you owned your house for 20 years and then you're gonna rebuild it and be taxed at the new price, that would be pretty horrendous. So as long as you're keeping the same footprint and building it pretty much the same as before, you're gonna be able to keep your tax base, which is super helpful. So I spent a good amount of time with them on the phone. I asked about, with the building department, I called the chief building official, Marty Haney, and talked to him about how is this going to work. And they're actually hiring an outsourced company to help with getting the permits because they're not equipped to handle that amount of demand, which is awesome. And they're going to be able to, same thing, they're going to look at the assessor records and see if you built it between 53 and 56, everything's legal. If you did any add-ons, they might grandfather in a later date because a lot of times the standard mountains, not everything's permitted. So they might even go up to 85. That's uncertain, but if anybody wants to email me, my cards are here. If I find out something, I'll give you guys a response on that. So they're going to be grandfathering some in there. But I think it's going to be more streamlined if you try to build exactly what you had before. And if you had older additions that were done without permits, they might be able to figure those out depending on how old. If it was really new, probably not, but before 56, pretty easy. So the big question is septics. I wasn't able to reach environmental health to find out how they're going to be handling that, but I'm hoping that they're going to work with people and build their homes back quickly. So that's kind of the rebuild, what I found out. I don't know if anybody has any questions on that.
I can speak a little bit about some of that stuff too.
Yeah.
So one of the things that I can say is that it's the same footprint and maybe 10% more. I think that they're not, I don't know about the assessment, but I'm pretty sure it's like the same footprint, 10% more. Yeah, that's what you can do without like getting the assessor to be like, oh, we're going to charge you $10,000 more on your property. The other thing that in your neighborhoods, if you have neighbors, what I would suggest is talking to them, because you can save money by kind of pooling, like everyone, like a contractor shouldn't have more than 4 or 5 projects going on at once. And so if you're using, and I'm not talking about like Barry Swenson who has a lot of people underneath him, but like if you have one contractor that you're thinking of hiring and they have a lot of jobs, you want to just consider that, because that's a lot of, they're going to be spread really thin. But what you can do is you can get your contractors that are willing to work with others, and they can like pool their resources. So you don't need to have like 5 toilets on one street. You could have 1 toilet in 1 water station. You know what I mean? So that kind of stuff can be really helpful. So talk to your neighbors and see what they're planning on doing, so that you can really connect. If you have a total loss would be that your house completely burned down. And if that's the case, I'm very sorry. And also that in hiring an architect, you can, who's the architect? Chris?
Nathan, or was the architect was the contractor? Architect.
They're on an email. Let's see. I think
They're on?
Yeah. Yeah, so who's an architect, you know?
Oh, gosh.
A lot, probably.
Yeah, I can't think of one. Elaine, do we have an architect that we recommend? No.
So reach out to an architect, and also your neighbors may have already done that. If you want to rebuild with the same footprint but maybe have different plans, what you can do is, you know, if you like this kind of siding and the other person likes that kind of siding or this kind of look, you can save money that way, because then they can kind of repurpose the plans. One of the things also is if you want to build an ADU on top of, like, let's say your house partially burned, and you want to build that ADU so that you can get into that and then finish your house, because your house is 2,000 square feet and ADU is a little smaller. The permitting process for the ADU, because of the impact of population on Santa Cruz County, is in 2020 they have made it a little bit easier. And so they have, I don't know what it stands for, but they have a JDU that's up to 800 square feet and then an ADU which is up to 1,200 square feet. And depending on the size of your property, you could even build both of those on your property. So now's the time to streamline it. And also if it's under, if it's under a certain size, it won't be reassessed by the county to increase your property taxes. And I think it's under 750 to 800 square feet. So if you do that, I don't think it'll increase your property taxes. So that's something that you might want to consider also. In your insurance policy, there is something, and Reno can talk more about this, about being up to code and getting up to code. And there should be exclusions in the policy about, and you can talk a little about this, about being, I don't know what it's called, but like code, a dollar amount allotted to getting your property.
Ordinance or law coverage?
Yeah, ordinance or law coverage. Yeah. So I didn't know a whole lot about my insurance, and what I did was I called Greenspan, and I'm a partial loss, and they don't necessarily work with partial loss, but it was so invaluable. It was so invaluable to hear what they had to say and how to go through my policy, so I felt more empowered about what my coverage actually was, so that when I met with my adjuster, I could say, oh, well, what about this, or what about that? So I want you to share kind of what you do and why hiring an adjuster would be helpful. Remember, the adjusters, no matter how much they say they're on your side, they do work for the insurance company. And no joke, my adjuster said, well, we're nationwide. We're on your side. And I'm like, okay, thanks for letting me know that. I know the commercial. But just in hearing everyone struggle with this, I really that's why I wanted to kind of do like a little community thing. So if you want to share more,
Sure.
Yeah.
you want to talk any more about like the sales process or anything like that? Or?
So I've heard we are seeing people that have lost homes that want to re-enter the market and buy new ones. I guess the benefit right now is the rates are in the twos. So I guess when the insurance company gives you a check, they have a couple of signatures on it, so you have to pay off the mortgage, of course. But we are seeing people that are wanting to get back in the market and not want to go through the building process and buy now because the rates are low. So we're getting some of those calls now too, and we're evaluating lots to find out how much they're worth. I know that one more thing I got from the county was if you have a lot that has smoke damage on it, they said don't clean it because FEMA's on their way to come up and clean. And if you start cleaning yours, they'll pass by your property. So that's one thing I got from the county when I chatted with them yesterday. Yeah.
Can I ask a question? You said if you have smoke damage.
If you have ashes, if your house burned and there's ashes and debris, they said don't clean.
Does that go for outbuildings as well?
I think so.
So one of the things that you want to make sure that there's a damage map, and if you are green but you have outbuildings that burned, then you need to make sure you communicate with I emailed Ryan Coonerty and I said, hey, like my house didn't burn, but I have serious damage and it's toxic, and I don't know how to clean that up, and I don't want to do it myself. And so he said he put me in touch with somebody to make sure I was on that list.
Do you have any of that information?
I got the email, but I haven't actually read it. But if you put your name down on here, I will make sure I get it to you. Yeah.
Any other questions?
Okay, those are my notes, but go ahead.
Oh,
Just put what you need right here.
We're gathering rentals from folks that have properties that own them, who want to rent, and we're getting a list together to try to connect people. We've helped several people find rentals. So if anybody's in need of a rental, let us know, and we'll try to connect you with the landlord that has the house for rent. Good question. Nice to you.
All right, Reno, you're up.
All right. Hi, everybody. I'm Reno Benenati with the Greenspan Company. You might have heard of us. There's a lot of chatter out there about us, and we're a local company. We're licensed by the Department of Insurance from state to state. And our role is to prepare, present, and negotiate insurance claims when catastrophe hits, whether it's an earthquake, flood, whatever's a covered loss. We are Bay Area. I live in Millbrae, so we're a local company. We're not from out of state, which is really helpful. This is our backyard. As a firm, we've been around since mid-1940s as a firm, and we have been involved in pretty much every major firestorm in recent California history. I've been involved in probably over 10,000 claims to one degree or another, and have been at all these firestorms as of late. It's been pretty bad. Every year it's getting more and more prevalent. It used to be every 5-6 years. Now it's every year. We just don't know where it's going to hit. So with that comes a lot of education, and we are happy to share our knowledge with you as a firm to help you navigate the insurance process. Suddenly you're thrust in the world of insurance. You're looking at an 80-90 page legalese document, a contract of insurance. You've got obligations, they've got obligations, and what we like to do is demystify the process and help you help yourselves. It's really critical for you to get the information that you need, and that's what we're here to do. If it makes sense to get involved in a claim, then we could talk about it. Every claim is different. It's done on a case-by-case basis. I have fielded no more than 250 to 300 calls in the last 2 weeks, Jaimi included, and we spent some good time together talking about the process. So we're not taking on all the claims, but those that make sense, we'd be happy to discuss through the process. So, what does a claim look like?
Yeah, can you talk about also like the percentage that people take, and like what if you don't do partial losses, like if someone wants an advocate, what would that?
Yeah. So why do you need an advocate to begin with? Well, look, we're here to level the playing field, and sometimes just having the information at your fingertips is enough to get you over the goal line. Other times when your house is burnt to the ground, that's really complicated because you literally have to recreate stick for stick, stone for stone, the building, and then you have to recreate all the contents of that building that you have, the dwelling. So it's a huge task. It can take years off your life, I like to say, and it's really complicated. So that's what we do, is to prepare, present, negotiate the claim on your behalf. The issue as of late, there's a couple of things. There's smoke claims. How many people here have smoke, and not how many people are burnt to the ground? Okay, so I'll be happy to answer your questions. The way to look at your policy really quickly, you may have already looked at it. You've got 4 different buckets of coverage. You've got the dwelling, you've got other structures, you've got personal property, and the loss of use. Now, let's talk about loss of use real quick, because this was a big problem here at this firestorm. There's a thing called civil authority, which gives you 2 weeks of coverage when a civil authority enacts an evacuation. Whether it's a riot, if you're in Oakland in the city, and then when there was a riot, that civil authority get out. And so that enacts the coverage. It triggers it. It gives you only 2 weeks. Well, the problem became the evacuation was going into 3 weeks and plus. So the insurance companies were not committing to paying any more than the 2-week civil authority until they seen that you suffered what's called physical loss and damage to the property. So that triggers, if you have physical loss and damage to the property, which means evidence of smoke, soot, and ash, burning, singeing, things like that that would make the house dwelling unlivable, then that's a triggered claim. Simply because the power is out and you have no water, that does not trigger a claim. A lot of people say, hey, it smells like smoke, but I don't see any soot or ash in my house, but it smells really bad. Unfortunately, they don't insure air, because that's basically what happens there. So we were getting all these calls about what to do. So basically, if you got home after the evacuation's lifted and you see any signs of soot, smoke, and ash in your home, then that triggers the loss of use bucket, the temporary housing bucket, to either the amount of the limit in that bucket or for the period, what's called the period of restoration. And the period of restoration is the period it takes for you to get back in, to pre-loss condition. This is the key, folks. It's pre-loss condition. That's what you're owed. That's what it says in the policy. So what does that mean? Well, I had a call just before I got here. A woman called and said, hey, the adjuster came in from out of state, of course, and he recommended a cleaning vendor, of which I'm not going to name. They're pretty well known. I'll name ServPro, Service Master. Anyway, look, you're going to need these guys, and they're definitely an asset to have. But they came in, they supposedly did the cleaning, and they left. And when she got home, after checking out of the hotel, it smelled like, she said, pine sol and smoke. So the question now is it, and she still saw physical signs of ash in the children's room, so it became a problem. Now, the insurance adjuster is saying, look, the house is livable. We already, cleaned it. We're going to pay the vendor. It's done. Well, that's a problem. So expect pushback. Everything's negotiable with an insurance company. Don't for a minute think it's not. And look, they're a for-profit industry. It doesn't make them bad people, but it's important to recognize that you have a contract. There's obligations that they have to meet. Now, another thing I want to mention while it's in my head is a lot of times people call me and say, hey, I called my adjuster twice yesterday and today, and I haven't heard back. There's an insurance code that allows the insurance adjuster to have up to 15 days to respond to you. Okay, so if if they're within that compliance, it is what it is. I mean, they have up to 15 days. The problem is, how do you deal with an out-of-state adjuster? Well, a lot of these guys get called in. We call them stormtroopers. They come in and they take up residence for a few weeks to kind of start the claims process, and then they're going to go home. The problem with it is that you may see 3, 4, up to 7 adjusters on your claim. And that becomes problematic in the sense that the third guy doesn't agree with the second guy's valuation method, and the 7th guy doesn't agree with the 5th guy's, and on it goes. This was very prevalent in Santa Rosa and in Paradise. It's just the way the mechanism works. I don't know why they do it, but it's done. And so you'll be dealing with that. I would highly recommend that you have every conversation memorialized. So if you're on the phone speaking with the insurance adjuster, making some kind of an agreement, when you hang up, get on your computer and email that adjuster. Do not text the adjuster. Email it and get it into the corporate email system. Because when that person leaves, you got some kind of track record there. And memorialize the conversation. My understanding of today's meeting or conversation was bullet point, and then get it in there. And that's important. again, everything is negotiable. It's how you're able to present your claim. It is your duty, not them. You're making a claim to the insurance company. They're not making a claim to you. They have no duty to perform. They know they have to pay you, but they don't have to put together a claim. That's your job. It says it in the policy. So you have to prepare the claim, you have to present the claim, and then negotiate it. And so it is a process. And it's arduous. It's not easy because it's not what you do every day. I do it every day, so for me it's second nature. I'll start taking questions, but there's a lot to talk about. Yes.
Well, I don't mind waiting. That's fine.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, you can, go ahead.
Well, do you have a sort of a boilerplate or template for us to put a claim together that we can use?
What kind of claim is it?
Partial loss. I lost an outbuilding, raised bed, garden, landscaping, and have
Smoke damage.
very easily detectable smoke damage and stuff in the house.
Okay. So has the adjuster visited the property?
Yes.
You've got what's called a partial loss.
Partial loss. Yeah.
Okay. And what was the conversation?
He said he was going to put together a package and send it to me for review.
Okay.
I haven't seen that yet.
Okay.
You know, we didn't. There, on my particular experience, there didn't seem to be a lot of tremendous amount of disagreement between what he thought and what I thought was going on.
That's a verbal, right?
Yes.
Okay.
I mean,
Until it's on paper. That's when you're
exactly,
going to see. Yeah.
Yeah. But you know, he did talk about removing all of the insulation and everything from the attic. And
Yeah, that makes
removing all
sense.
the attic
What about the walls?
So here's yeah, that's a good point.
Washing all the walls.
But not going inside the walls?
At this point, no.
So let's talk about that. She brings up a great point. Your outside walls typically have insulation. So if it's so smoked out inside, then it may be worth doing some exploratory where they cut an inch or two off and they pull some, and they kind of look at it under a microscope to see if there's any particulate or carbon, and that's enough evidence to say, because you know, to get it replaced. How do you get it replaced? You got to gut the interior off. I've seen cases where large homes had to be completely gutted to studs on smoke damage. So you got to be careful.
Right. Well, that's part of. I do have a vaulted ceiling that I'm concerned with the infiltration into the insulation there, and the outside of the house is stucco. So I imagine if it does have to happen, it'll have to be from the inside.
So one of the ways that the adjuster can't do this. I don't believe, and correct me if I'm wrong, but that's when you would say, so let's say that they wipe everything down or they send you a thing. Then you say, but I still smell smoke. Then it may be in the walls, right? So then you would ask for, and I kind of think you would want to do this before, but maybe you would know, is you'd ask for a certified industrial hygienist to come out and actually test. Because the people who wipe down the walls, like he might come out, and I don't know if he did like a chem sponge test or anything, but they're just going to be like, oh yeah, there's smoke. I can see it. You can see some visual. But just so you know, smoke is 0.4 to 5 microns, okay? You can't see that. But you can test for it under electron microscope. So somebody who you pay thousands of dollars for will come out, and they won't cut a wall. Most often they don't cut a wall. What they'll do is they'll take a faceplate covering because the smoke attaches to plastic. So if they're taping metal, then they're not the right person. They will be taping on plastic, and they'll take the cover, they'll put it down, and then they'll literally put tape around the plate, and then they'll put it on a bag or whatever, and then they'll go and they'll send it off. So you want to ask questions like, where are you sending it? What's the lab you're using? How much do you charge? What is it all included? What does the report look like? Who's signing the report, right? Because that certified hygienist, that certification is a professional opinion, whereas the adjuster, they're trained by the insurance company, but they don't have a license certification.
Yeah, you're right. So this has come up a lot. Do I hire a hygienist or not? Look, at the end of the day, if the insurance company says, no, we're not paying for it, but we'll take care of the cleaning, and you argue it back and forth and they refuse, well, then you got to ask yourself, what's my family worth? Do I spend the $1,800 or $2,000 to get this done so I can sleep at night? Because if the report comes back from the lab and it tests positive for hazmat in the particulate, then, like Jaimi said, the cleaners have to be certified. They're certified to do it, not the guy down the street who just got a job, because they're so swamped for help around here to clean all the homes. So it's really important to understand the process. And that's important. That's a good point.
Well, and then once you when you take a certified hygienist and you get their report, then and you are walking around, they go to your attic, they go to your subfloor. You know, I have a vaulted ceiling and it's open beam ceiling, and so I'm concerned that the smoke is going to stay in the open beam ceiling. And so I also used Anderson Group, and then there was another local one that I looked at, and they're cleaners, and they came out and they gave me a bid, and I'm asking them how, and it was just for the property outside and inside. It wasn't for any of my soft goods cleaning. So another thing that you want to talk about with soft goods is like, how are you cleaning it? What are you using? Are you using ozone? What is the material? Oh, you know, I have a warranty on my bed. It's going to void the warranty if I have to get it cleaned. So I'm not okay with that. And also, can you guarantee me that the inside of the mattress is going to be cleaned? How are they going to do that unless they cut the mattress open? They can't guarantee it, right? So you're going to be responsible for my medical conditions as a result of this, right? I mean, I don't know if you want to push that hard, but I mean, you may have to. And so that's something to consider, which is why I would like, whether the insurance is going to pay for hygienists for me, I'm going to like, I would pay for that because I want to make sure that there's no smoke in my house. If you're immunocompromised, if you, like, I have a 93-year-old that lives with me, there's no way I can, in my right mind, have me or my grandma be in my house. I mean, I can't be in my house for more than 5 minutes right now without, like, coughing with a respirator on, right? So I think that there's a lot of minimizing that's going on with the adjusters and what is happening to everybody, and I'm really sorry about that. And so in a way, like, having an advocate is super, super important. And the adjusters take anywhere from 5 to 15%.
It depends. Yeah, typically we work, if we get involved, if it makes sense to get involved, it's 10 cents on the dollar. It depends. You know, it's an economy of scale. But there's nothing that I've seen at 15%. Just be careful.
Right.
There's sometimes these out-of-state public adjusters that will fly in from the East Coast or whatever. You know, it's hard to do business when you can't look at somebody in the eyes and have a sit-down conversation with them. So just be careful. You know, look, we're out here. You can use this as a resource. She's been an incredible resource in the community, which is great. So back to the claims process. Your soft goods, she makes a good point. They do ozone it, and it may be destructive. So you have the right to ask the cleaning company, what methods are you using and how destructive is it to my fabrics? Because you could have something that was supposed to last a couple of years under normal wear and tear. Now it's minimized by half. So it's important as a consumer, smart consumer, to ask the right questions of how that process works. Did you want to add something?
Yeah, I totally agree with what he's saying. Also, textile experts, like you could talk to a textile expert and ask. Like, I had a sweatshirt that I wore like 2 days after the main fire came through because there's like 3 fires on my property. But after the second fire came through, I was there and I was helping to put some fires out. And I washed my shirt was horrible. And I washed it and I thought it smelled okay. And I picked it up today and I was like, wow, it's been washed twice and it still smells. Granted, I didn't wash it with ozone because it's going to deteriorate the quality of the fabric, but it still smells. And so you could argue that if it was depends on the vicinity of the fire to your property, but in your case, sir, where you had fire on your property within feet of your house, all the soft goods could arguably be gotten rid of.
When you say soft goods, you're talking about furniture and...
Furniture, I'm not talking about carpet, because carpet's technically the dwelling. So it would be... Well, like if they... So the way that the adjuster had told me was that if you can dump your house over, anything that falls out, that's personal property. And that's what we're talking about.
Okay, right. Yeah.
You're ready for your public adjusting exam.
So it's just like, I mean, I've spent so much time like reading all about this, and that's kind of like just my personality, because I want to be informed and I don't want to be screwed. I mean, like really.
But,
Well, maybe you and I can talk a little more later.
Yeah, totally. It sounds like we have a similar case.
Yeah.
But the assessor will have to wait for the insurance to give me their own assessor, and then you will. You said it was 7 assessors.
sometimes it's up to 7. They
Where do
change.
they come from?
So the adjuster is assigned to your case.
Right.
Yeah,
From
no,
an insurance, right?
they represent the insurance company.
Dr. Brady.
Right, but then they want to go home because they're from Kentucky or Chicago or somewhere. So then they'll switch it, and then they'll switch it again. It happens. I mean, and it's important for you to know now, so it's not a surprise and you get frustrated.
I'll tell them.
So-
I want to be
And the other thing is that you don't have control over that, right? Like maybe someone's going to take a vacation for 2 weeks, and it's like, sorry, now you're going to move on to Carl, and then after that you're going to move on to Julia. So what's super important is what he was saying is that every single email is recapped, and if you're not on Facebook, like Little Slice of Heaven or Battle Mountain News or Battle Mountain, those are some private Facebook groups for the people in Bonnie Doon, and they have like CZU Lightning Fire Complex groups, and these are groups that you like get authorized to join, and there's so much information that people are sharing because we're kind of, and there's private groups too for partial loss and total losses that can be really helpful for you as well.
Another thing I want to mention is that even after they wipe and clean the wall, sometimes it shadows because your paint might be flat paint or it could be textured wall. And so they can't get in all the nooks and crannies, so you're entitled to have it sealed and painted. Remember, the key word is pre-loss condition. What it was like 1 minute before the damage occurred. That's what they owe you, nothing less. And so how do you get there is by properly understanding, getting educated, like she said. This is why we're coming out here to help yourselves, to know how to read the red flags, and see the red flags. Now, the adjuster may come up with an estimate for you, and it doesn't have to be accurate. I'm licensed in 19 states. There's no law in any state beyond the licensing that I have that mandates that an insurance company be accurate on their offer of settlement. It's simply an opinion of what they want to pay you. And so if you're not able to show them where they're wrong or argue that difference of opinion, you're at a disadvantage. You're stuck.
So one of the things that he had said to me, I think it was you or your partner, Steve, is that they have a program, and it spits out, it's like, I forget what it's called, it's like Estimator Pro or something.
It's
Xactimate. And so what it does is it will shoot out an estimate based on your square footage and all this stuff, but it doesn't know the brand name of your bed, it doesn't know the brand name of your couch, it doesn't know that you wear Gucci or Armani or Patagonia or whatever it is that you wear, right? So you itemizing it can be really helpful, and then also be prepared that this is a negotiation, and don't take that first Xactimate estimate as that. Then what you do is you get the cleaners, and you get 3 different, they're gonna say use ServPro or use Restoration Management or whoever it is, and you can then go and get estimates yourself, and you can say, oh, okay, well I want to see their bid, and then I want to see these bid, and is this actually apples to apples? No, it's not actually apples to apples, so I don't want to do that.
The scope,
yeah.
Important to make sure if you ever go to resale that you get it all checked out now. Because if a buyer comes by your home later on a later date, they'll disclose it was damaged in a fire, and if they test it, then I don't think you can go back.
Yeah, you get disclosure issues. That's important. So you get one shot to do it right, folks, and you want to get it done right. She makes another great point. There's a few companies, just because they said, hey, use this guy, doesn't mean you have to. They're going to provide what's called a scope of repair, a scope of the cleaning. And look, some people cash out. If the cleaning is 10 grand, you can tell the insurance company, hey, give me the 10 grand and I'll deal with it. I'll hire my own people. Thank you very much. But as long as the scope is correct.
Okay, but let's be clear. That $10,000 is to be on your house. So if you have a mortgage, that check doesn't necessarily go to you. Like in some instances, the check could go to you and the mortgage company, and then they disperse it, and then they have someone come out to make sure the work was done. Because you could just take the money and not do anything.
Yeah, so mostly, we're going to get to your questions in a moment. Mostly on total losses, I'm not sure what the threshold is.
Yeah,
you got to call the loss draft department, LOSS draft department. They're a little department in every mortgage company that's there to handle the inbound checks from settlements and to release them back out for repairs to be made. It's very important that you find out what their protocol is to release funds, because if they're named on the check as an additional insured, then and they don't know about it, it takes time to set this all up. So be proactive, not reactive. Very important on that.
Also, you still have to pay your mortgage, whether you have a total loss or you have a partial loss. So what I would suggest in COVID, if you were affected by COVID, you may have already done this, but one of the things that they will do is they'll do a forbearance plan, or they can do a forbearance plan. So you can call and say, my house is in a wildfire. What kind of a program do you have for my mortgage? And they may say, I don't know what they'll say, like, okay, we can like not have you pay for a month, or then you can pay it back over a few months. COVID, my parents were evacuated in Felton, and their house was fine. But for COVID, they did also forbearance for economic hardship. and they gave forbearance for up to a year on some. So you could, if you're not hearing the answer that you want, saying that you're in a wildfire, call back and say, oh, I have economic hardship due to COVID, and they may have a better forbearance plan for you.
Back to the point. What's an interesting question?
Yeah.
One more quick one. Sorry. As far as when they provide us with a settlement offer, how much time do we have to do this whole process?
Good question. The typical timeline for resolution of a claim is 90 to 120 days. That's under normal circumstances. So this is, look, we live in a high-tech, fast-paced society. Insurance moves really slow. It's a machine. They usually, write checks maybe once or twice a month, if that. And so you've got to get the agreed scope and unit cost agreed to. They may issue an advance. For those of you that have a burn down, they may give you what's called an undisputed amount to start the process. But you got to get them on the hook for the true replacement cost of the damages. It's critical.
And in some cases, what they'll do with the replacement cost is like they'll give you that partial payout, and then you have to itemize every single thing that you had in your house in order to get the rest of it. And so you really want to have a really great spreadsheet of like where you think you bought it from. And maybe, I know this can be super emotional. One of the things you can do is like get on Pinterest, get onto like Home Depot and remodeling places so that you can actually remember. It's like to trigger your brain to be like, oh yeah, I did have books in there, or I did have this if you don't have any photos of your home.
I want to answer your question. Did you have a question?
Yeah, I had
Yeah.
I had Servco come up with the adjuster from State Farm at the same time, and the and Servco seems to think they're working for the insurance company, and I'm like, well, we're the ones deciding whether or not we're going to use you or pay you.
Right.
I want to see what your assessment is.
Right.
You're the expert on what it's a partial damage. The home is still there, but as far as the smoke damage goes, but they didn't do any testing. I mean, they took measurements of the building, and
They're not testers. They're cleaners. They're glorified cleaners. They're not testers.
And so it's been over 2 weeks, and he's like, well, I'm waiting for your insurance company to let me know what you do. And I'm like, but I want to know what should be done, not.
So here's the roadmap. If they can't provide it, tell me what the scope and unit cost of the job.
Yeah.
Okay, it's called the scope and unit cost of the job. Period. If they cannot provide it to you in a timely manner, just say I'm calling Service Master or Restoration Management. Just switch off. Doesn't matter, because I got to tell you, they're really, really busy, and they're hiring help that sometimes you just don't know who's in your house. So, and back to that, get your valuables out. Very important. Tax records. If you have weapons, if you have jewelry, you don't want to, and just a way to minimize any.
They're going to
further
clean.
losses.
They're supposed to clean
They'll be
every
in all
single
your drawers
thing.
and everything. So it's really important to get that done.
So Anderson Group was one of the cleaners, and then who else?
I can look.
Restoration Management,
Yeah, that was-
Service Master, and ServPro.
And
DKI, there's DKI as well.
Yep. Yeah.
Like, I'd like to support some local efforts, but
Sorry.
I'd like to support local efforts.
Oh
Yeah,
yeah,
of
there
course.
is somebody that I know.
Is
Hold
there a
on,
question?
I'll find it for you.
Regarding the sort of timing between an environmental hygienist and having a cleaner, like one of these we're talking about right now, what does that look like, and what is the recommendation?
So if you formally request in writing that you have, whether it's asthma or some kind of breathing ailments or a family member in the house, you request it with the adjuster saying, I'm requesting that you guys pay for an environmental hygienist. More than likely, they're going to say, no, we're not going to do that, but we'll pay to clean it if it's a viable claim. Then you're going to make a decision whether you're going to fight it out later with them or just get it done. So they usually come out in the lab results, everything within a week. So they come out, they swab, they send it out to the lab, usually out of state sometimes. You'll get the results back, and you're going to make a decision.
Alliance.
So you're going to do that. So
environmental
but
group.
I guess what I'm asking is, the environmental hygienist you're going to have come out before cleaning service steps into your house.
Yeah, I mean, because don't you want to know what they're cleaning?
Exactly, yeah.
Because what if they're cleaning something and they're using a wrong chemical to clean it, or the white they're smearing it and then making it worse.
Well, and I do have chronic senior housing.
So the other thing that I would do is if you have medical conditions, like if you need to go to the doctor, go to the doctor.
And let them know.
And let them, and
Builds
start
your case.
Yeah, exactly.
Let them know. Let them know you have breathing ailments and you're very concerned. Now they have to make some kind of a health decision here. It's a liability.
Probably put it in an email again too, right?
Everything in email.
Yeah.
Everything needs to be documented, folks. I can't stress that enough. I want to talk about, she mentioned code upgrades. For those of you, if there's anybody here left that has, or those of you on Facebook, have a complete loss, the way the code works is it's typically a percentage of the base limit. And it's called ordinance or law. You'll see it in there. And what it does is it pays to bring your house up to today's standards. Now, every county is different. So whatever the code requirements are here, the latest code requirements are law. And so the insurance company cannot supersede that. But they only owe up to the limit. So if you've got like $100,000, let's say, of code coverage to bring your house up to code, and the code triggers $200,000, you're going to probably have to move some money around from other buckets of coverage. And the way it works is they owe you for what you had 1 minute before the loss plus code. It's additional coverage. Some policies have it built into the coverage, into the limit, and some are additional. So it's important to know. Again, that's more for the people that have lost everything.
The other thing that I want to share about your policy that Reno taught me was that you have bush, trees, and shrub coverage, and we live in the woods, right? So every single bush, tree, and shrub has a value up to like $500 or $1,000, and so usually it's 5% of the dwelling coverage. So if your dwelling coverage is $500,000, then it would be $50,000. No, $25,000. Let me do the math real quick.
Yeah, and that's easy money. And by the way, you should get that right away. If you've lost, just look at 5% of the dwelling limit, and then back out how many. Like if it's $500 per tree, per bush, per shrub, or $750 up to $1,000, like she said. Just divide it, and you got to count 38 trees, bushes, or shrubs. You'll get there really quick. Just get your money now because there's no reason to have to wait for that. That's low-hanging fruit, and there's no reason to have to wait for your money.
And even if you get that check, it doesn't necessarily mean that you're settling. Is that right?
Yeah, I mean they only owe you up to the limit that's in that bucket of coverage. So,
the other thing is that if you have people who are renting from you, like I have some renters in my house. You want to make sure that you have the lease agreements and you can show that as loss of income, and they can, they should be able to, with the proof of the lease, you should be able to get that rental income.
So let's talk about that. So some policies only give you up to 12 months coverage, or for the shortest period of restoration. But if your house is burnt, or if you're out like for example 4 or 5 months, and they'll pay for that, but they only owe you the net. So you're going to have discontinuing expenses. Like, whatever you stop paying, utilities or whatever, you're going to subtract that because they only owe you the net, not the gross.
Oh, so if your lease was for like $500 plus $100 utilities, it'd only be $500.
Yeah, they're going to back out. They're owed a credit because you're not incurring that expense.
Right.
Does that make sense? Mm-hmm. Yeah, so that's how that works. As far as other structures, you've got limitations. Typically it's 10% of the dwelling limit. Take a look at your wellheads, all that stuff is going to be looked at. And again, you're making a claim for your money. They're not making a claim to you, folks. So you got to step up and make that claim. Don't sit back. Be proactive, not reactive, because they can sit on your money for months and months. I've had calls after something like 13 months. People are like, I haven't gotten my money yet. I'm like, well, did you make a claim? Yeah, I called it in, and they came out, and nothing happened. I said, because you never told them what they owe you. So you have to go and tell them you're making a claim for your money. That's why it's called a claim.
If anybody needs bids from well companies, this kind of thing, we have some resources.
Yeah, you get a lot of great local help here. There's some firestorms. Like I was in Mammoth Lakes, Swall Meadows burnt down, the whole valley. I was out there for months, and there was like no resources out there. I mean, you guys are really lucky to have all these professionals in the area that can really help you point you in the right direction. Question?
Also, if you're an owner builder, like you definitely can do the work yourself. I mean, if you want to, you can definitely do the work yourself. You don't have to hire somebody else.
Let's talk about smoke damage to textiles. Again, I just want to revisit that. So, Jaimi made a great point. The mattresses you cannot clean. Even what about the cushions in your sofa? Maybe they can clean the outside fabric, but when you sit on that cushion, it's going to displace air, and up comes the smell of smoke. So maybe you can get it reupholstered properly. That's important. to look at.
But you can't get the inside the cushion.
The
in
cushion
middle.
can't be cleaned. The foam cushion you
So
can't
like,
clean.
sure, you could reupholster it all you want, but it's not gonna.
Yeah.
The integrity of the couch is now gone.
Yeah, so what the point I'm trying to get at, maybe either it's a total loss, they owe you, so if they can't clean it back to pre-loss condition, then they owe you to replace it.
And what about the leather?
Leathers, you know, you have to lean on the cleaning companies. You know, they love to clean. The more they clean, the more they bill your policy, but it doesn't mean they're doing the right job.
Yeah. So I mean, I just restored an Italian leather couch.
It's porous, right? It's
Yeah.
it's porous. So
Yeah.
that's a conversation to be had. How are you going to clean it? And what happens if I can't get it back to pre-loss condition? You're going to pay to replace it, right? Because it's not pre-loss. They're going to argue. And look, it's easy for these guys to come in from out of state and just say no and go back home because you'll never see them again. So it's really a problem. It really is. And it's been this way since all the firestorms have been happening. So.
Also, there's seams in your couches, and remember the microns. It's like 0.5 microns. So can 0.5 microns permeate leather? I don't know. That's something that you could probably Google and figure out. But also, it could get through the holes of the sewing.
Yeah.
Did you have a question, ma'am?
Yes, my adjuster came last Monday, and I explained to her exactly about the size of the, 7.5 micron. That's what we need to check, right? But she absolutely said that is wrong, incorrect.
Well, I can't understand.
So she went out, and the adjuster came out, and this woman said, well, I understand, like, the smoke particles are 0.4 to 5 microns, and the adjuster said that's wrong.
Yeah, and what she did was, like,
Finger swipe test?
yes.
She did a finger swipe.
Yes, and she.
That's scientific.
Yes, very much. And she has oil and the color, and then there are, yeah. I'm sorry. I have
It's okay. No, it's okay.
And so my immediate neighbors across the street, 2 houses, and the next and the back were burned down. And my house doesn't have any burn damage.
Right.
And smoke, the ashes that look like a grain of sand.
That's correct.
Yeah.
Or pepper.
That came through 4 corners of doors.
Yep.
That's about all that we can detect with eyes. And so this adjuster is saying, we HEPA vacuum, then your house is fine. And even at this point, it is habitable and I should move back. And
Have they done that?
Yeah.
Have they HEPA vacked it?
No, she was here on Monday. So on Tuesday evening, I believe, I not the texting, but correctly emailed to it, not everything, but wrote down to confirm what we discussed.
Yeah.
And then she telephoned late in the evening, very, very late, sort of maybe because I wrote email and she was a different person. When she was there, she was sometimes sort of nice and sometimes really rude, like about when I mentioned that this is what I'm learning through United Policyholders.
Yeah, great site.
So yes, listen, she said that's totally wrong.
That's nice.
Right.
That's nice of her to say.
That she comes up. Her manner is totally, you are wrong. You are wrong
Okay.
to me. So what do I do? And then also I have a heat pump. You know that machine
Yeah.
that's opening. And I pointed out, and what she said was, yeah, maybe we can just wipe on the
Or like dust it
hard
off?
surface. I just with this opening, and what she said, okay, maybe we clean inside, and then we would clean the duct also. And she said, no, that's not necessary.
Oh, it is absolutely necessary. You
Yes,
can have it.
but how could please tell me because that's where I am
they
stuck.
make you.
Let me-
yeah,
let me help.
She says
yeah,
I'm
that's a
wrong.
lot of people. That's a lot of
You
people.
can have it reassigned.
You can
Okay,
just reassign
I,
your
Have it
adjuster.
reassigned.
I request my agent.
Your agent has nothing to do with it.
No,
Your
yeah.
agent sells policies. They're not to be
Yes.
involved in the claims process.
So-
Senate Bill 488 passed in 2017. Senate Bill 488, which excludes contractors from negotiating your insurance claim and your insurance agents and brokers. They can't do that because they sell the policy. They're an extension of the company. So they can't go to the company and say, hey, pay this person more. They're going against the company, in essence. So you can call the corporate office, have it reassigned to another adjuster, or call the claims management office. The squeaky wheel gets the grease, folks, Be the squeaky wheel. The squeaky wheel, it's a saying. That means the person who complains the most gets taken care of first.
So then, and will I get more honest people that way? But
Just it's a different opinion. It's
different opinion.
the woman that you're dealing with is rendering her opinion, and it's strictly an opinion, and that's part of this negotiation that you're stuck in. But you have the right to call claims management, call the Department of Insurance.
Yes, I connected because my family know Neil and Ryan Coonerty, and
Okay.
he said, and also other cleaning company suggested that I file a complaint.
Sure, you should.
It's just only, it's very quick. It just happened to me yesterday.
It's okay.
And so forth.
File.
So that's what I should do.
Yeah, look, if everybody stays silent and the Department of Insurance doesn't know what's going on with these carriers, shame on you. This is why they're there. They license them, they license us to level the playing field. It's really important. You're a consumer. You bought a contract. You didn't write the contract, they did. So you just want them to adhere to the contract. If you're working within the four corners of the policy, you have every right to do what you're doing.
And in part of the policy, it says that you have right to testing, doesn't it? In some policies.
Well, it doesn't say that. But basically, you have the right to clean it first and see if it responds. If it doesn't respond, then you're entitled to have it painted, sealed, and painted, and to get back to pre-loss condition. So if I were you, they're always going to push back. That's what they're trained to do. Push back and see what happens. And some people get scared and they run away, and they win. And the people that challenge them get paid. That's what happens.
The other solution is you can also hire an attorney.
So let's talk about
Or
that.
the public adjuster.
No,
Well,
an
public-
attorney.
Yeah. If you hire an attorney, fine. They can definitely negotiate your claim. It's allowed. Public adjusters and an attorney are the only two disciplines in the state of California that can negotiate for you in a negotiation with an insurance claim. The only problem I see when you hire an attorney and the adjuster gets a letter on the letterhead of an attorney, it has to go up to their legal department because the adjuster's not an attorney. So it gets escalated. Now, if it's something that they can put to bed really quickly and get it resolved, they'll do that because they don't want to be paying attorney fees all the time. So, but it depends.
And the other thing you can do is you could have an attorney who happens to be your advocate walk the property with the next adjuster that you have come out and be like, oh yeah, I have legal counsel because I just have legal counsel all the time with any big thing. So I'm just going to have my attorney and they're just going to be here. And so already you're coming to the table, asserting yourself just a tiny bit more enough to say, don't mess around.
I'll be right with you. For a public adjuster to get involved in a cleaning loss, there's no value added for us. For example, if the cleaning bill is $50,000 and we work on 10%, it costs us more to be involved, and now you get paid out of the pocket. So the burn downs and the significant damages where we have to recreate things, and that's where it really gets complex. But not just on a cleaning loss. I know it's frustrating, but you'll get over it. You'll get over it and through understanding how to do it. That's why we're here.
So I showed up when the adjuster was there,
Mm-hmm.
and it was right after I had been done with my adjuster, different company. The adjuster said, "We're talking to her, not you." Now, I'm not a lawyer, and I'm not a public adjuster.
You're a
Am
neighbor.
I allowed to be there and ask questions and be her advocate during this whole process?
You could be a witness, sure. And the reason he said that is because he doesn't want a busybody interfering in his claims process. No disrespect, but I know what he's thinking. And so the contract holder is her, and he's obligated to talk to her and her only. Now, no different than having a contractor come in and speaking for you. They can't do it.
Okay,
It's-
but I can.
You can be a witness.
But can I ask her questions? Can I tell her questions to ask?
Sure. Yeah, why not?
Yeah.
But he doesn't
you
have to
don't
answer to you.
my question.
He doesn't have to answer to you.
Okay.
He has to
It
answer
was a
to
woman, but I can tell her the question.
Sure.
Ask this.
Yeah, pull her
and
aside
be
and
there
say,
for the- yeah,
check
yeah.
this.
Or don't even, what if you just don't even pull her? Like, since you clearly can't talk to me, please
Yeah.
ask this question so
That's
you
fine.
become the translator.
Yeah, and that's part of it. Is I came to help her with language issues.
I understand that. That's great. That's
That's
we made it.
awesome.
That's good. That's good. So these out-of-state people that come from the deep south, some from Kentucky, Georgia, the laws are completely different out there. So California, we're very litigious out here. There's a lot of rules and regulations. The way we think they're not used to it, and so it becomes problematic.
Yeah, well, she came from the geek stuff. I think it was 80s.
Yeah, I mean, look, I see it all the time. It's
So when I contact the corporate number and request for a different adjuster, how do I do it? Like this adjuster, when she called me, she's going to have written estimate next Monday,
okay,
but she telephoned after I emailed
That's right.
the confirmation,
Yep.
and then she started to say very different things, different facts, such as inside of my living space, the smell of the smoke is lighter, much lighter than garage, and it seems to be getting lighter in the last several days. But the garage remains to be very heavy
Yep.
of smell of smoke.
because you got exposed wood.
Yes, it is actually last few days definitely much heavier than outdoor. Even we had garage door open so they could bring the computer and then the tables and so forth, still remains heavy. But on the phone she said she didn't smell any smoke in my garage.
That's nice.
And so forth. And then
But
I
she's not living
asked,
there, like,
instead of a phone conversation, I asked her to email me what she was saying on the phone.
So,
And then she
No,
said,
you-
she said she can't do
so
that.
can you record her? So what?
No,
Can you record her when she's walking around? Be like, okay, I just want to, because I can't remember. I'm just going to record
if
this
she lets you
conversation.
record, if she lets you, allows you, more than likely she'll say no, because they don't want to be held to the fire, so to speak.
Right.
Yeah, so-
But she's outrightly lying. But
Yeah,
because
it's not surprising. We hear it all the time, and we catch people doing that all the time. So it is awful, and I'm sorry you have to go through it. I've been doing it for 24 years. I was also a fire victim 25 years ago. So it's
fire what?
a fire victim. My house burned.
Oh,
I'm from Boston originally. My first home burnt down, and that's how I got into the business. I hired a public adjuster to represent me. 3 months into the process, they recruited me into the business, and I never looked back since.
Oh wow.
Yeah, that's how I got in. So I've been in your shoes. I know what it feels like. It's terrible. So that's why I advocate for people to help. So have it reassigned.
ask them if I could record it.
If you need
Is that
a
what you were saying?
yes,
Oh.
yes, that's correct. Yeah,
And
you
then
can't just record it; it's illegal.
you have to ask.
Questions? Questions? Are there any questions online?
Tobin Schaefer of TobinHomes.com. He says that he has a architect team that he can connect people with, and then also his website. I went to his website, and he has a lot of information on like assessors and like the permitting process. The very first thing you want to do is make sure that you get the hazmat cleanup, and that they're gonna, like, the county's gonna require that before you do any other additional building or anything. And then one of the first things, if you're a total loss, and your house burned down, they're gonna assess to see if your septic. You have to get a surveyor, I think, out there and see if your septic is worth saving or not. If it's cement, it might be, but if it's redwood, there's no way.
I want to address what you said, where you asked the woman to put it in writing. No, that's what you want to do. So you say, after you hang up, say, my understanding of our conversation is you said that you don't smell smoke anymore. I disagree.
Oh, even today I should do it a few days after.
Absolutely,
Keep it on
yes.
the record.
Yeah. That way now it's in the corporate system, so when she goes home and the next one comes in, they'll see that you have complaints
That
going.
makes sense. That makes sense.
That's how you do it. And that way, when it escalates to management, they see that your dialogue has been continuous, complaining about her being argumentative or denying certain areas of it.
Yes.
You understand?
Oh, yeah.
They'll never do it.
Yeah, I was one of them. I'm giving
They're
up.
gonna protect themselves.
Okay, thank
That's
you.
okay.
Thank
Yeah,
you.
be proactive, not
Yes, thank you.
As far as the permitting process, the other thing that I learned was that it's going to be around $10,000 for a 2,000 square foot home, and again, that's like an estimate. But they're gonna waive a bunch of county fees, but just the permitting fees they're gonna have you pay. Also, if you needed to have a dwelling, like a trailer on your property, as long as there's an available septic that you can like put your waste into, or a self-contained unit. You can't have that on your property for up to 36 months. You can get it permitted. If you have a home that's standing and there's a neighbor that's house burned down, and they don't have a septic because their house burned down and it wasn't viable. You can have a trailer for them on your property. So you don't have to. Or if you're in Santa Cruz and you have a trailer on your property, you can get a permit for up to 3 years to have somebody from a burn area live on the property. So I don't know how much that permit costs, but I do know that there's links on the county website that you can get that, and that can be really helpful.
Any other questions? Are there any other questions online at all? Yes.
You were saying about the getting the septic tested.
Yeah.
And what department do you go through for that?
Environmental planning department would be for septic, and then the planning department, right? The planning department would be for permitting.
Yeah. So to get your, you can call a septic service to have it done, but to just check if you want to know where your system is and all that kind of stuff, then you get your parcel number from the assessor's office, if you don't know it. And then on the county environmental health department page, there's a place for you to look for any documents they have, whether it's well or septic or anything. You put your APN number in, and all of the list of documents will come up, and you can click on them and get scans of all of those documents.
So I'm just going to repeat what you're saying. So for the people who are watching, so the woman asked what would you asked about like your septic and how to get it surveyed, and so you could go to the environmental department in the county building, which is below the planning department, and then you can also call a septic cleaning service can also
septic contractor.
A septic contractor can can
Honey
test
Bucket, Jeff Hill, Pete's Outflow, Hensley Construction. There's a lot of them out there.
Tom's
good,
septic, yeah.
There's a lot of companies. They're probably be busy checking them out soon, I'm imagining.
Also, like, we had trees fall on our leach field, so we might want to get our leach field checked because it was thousands of pounds that fell on our leach field.
Yeah, well, it burned over my leach field.
Yeah, it burned over mine too. So you'll want to get that checked. Also, what everyone's saying to get their wells tested, and that's super important, but one of the things that I've also heard was like, that's great, but it may not be anything until the first rain, and so this claim is not settled until like past that, And then also another thing that you want to consider is, if your property's still standing, how you're going to mitigate the potential for future burns, because this is, it's been less than 20 years, and there was a Martin fire and a Lockheed fire, right, in the last 20 years, and then this fire, which was bigger, and also. How are you creating defensible space around your property? And that's what you want to consider also in rebuilding. So those are things to consider. And then erosion control. How are you going to mitigate that? What burned on your property? I think some people were saying that like we're kind of lucky in Bonnie Doon, we're on granite, but there's some serious topsoil and it could be a mudslide. So that, some of the money that you get from your trees, you may be able to put into that. And then also there's, I think there's environmental resources that I don't know exactly what they are, but I think that you could have somebody come out and like look at your property and see what mitigation, because insurance may, if it's threatening the dwelling, they may need to do something, and I don't know if they will, but they might be able to.
I heard the conservation district.
Conservation district.
Yeah, they're really good. Yeah, they're really good. It's free. They come out. There's a fellow over there that will assess the erosion control. He's been doing it for 40 years. I think he wrote a book on it or something. Really, really helpful. And he walks the property and will make recommendations properly. You don't want to waste your money. I mean, he's seen cases where it was done wrong and caused even more damage. So it's worth exploring. And then because we were, and correct me if I'm wrong, but because we're considered a national disaster area, that the limits for like additional living expenses extend 12 months for those with total losses, or if you can't get back into your home for whatever reason. Is that right? Well, yeah. So if your policy has written in it under loss of use 12 months, but no dollar limit, it now extends to 36 months. Okay, and some policies have 24 months. It's 36 months. Or here's the caveat: the shortest period to either replace or repair the home. That's all they owe you for the shortest period of restoration.
Right, so when you have a partial loss, that's really tricky because he just said to replace or repair the home, but you're entitled to pre-loss conditions. So if like there's damage to your pitch ceiling, like your open vaulted ceiling, and it still smells like smoke after 6 months, and like maybe you're able to live in the home, but it's not totally done. It's like it's a he said, she said, and that's why you would really want to hire a third party at that point, possibly, if they're not agreeing with you.
Look at your house. Think about it. It's like a lung. You got massive heat around the house. It contracts, expands. That's how that soot gets in, even when the windows are closed. It's pressurized smoke, is what it is, and that's what causes the breach of ash and soot. and it's like finer than pepper. If you were to see pepper, it's even finer than that.
Yeah, and this is it is. I don't want to put you in a difficult situations, but yes, my adjuster when she telephoned and said really different stories that everything is fine, it's habitable, and then we end the additional living expense. And I still stayed in the hotel for a little bit, but then as of this morning I checked out because in the house didn't smell. In the living space, the smell of the smoke is not that bad. And one bedroom, when I run the little Dyson purifier that I haven't had, it only went up to 4, and it ran about 15 minutes, and it went down. That was my daughter's bedroom. But anyway, so and but as I returned home this afternoon, right, and then on one table, glass table, I placed one precious item which had to be respected, so I wiped that before space where I placed that item, and a white paper, and it came black.
Okay,
So I mean, I thought that dust that I know when I cleaned houses over all my life. It used to be gray, but that was
That's right.
black.
Black is carbon.
So
That's
then, how do I save this evidence now? If you could help me, how do I save the evidence for the next cleaner? Photos, items, whatever, and how safe am I in that house now?
I gotta tell you, did they already clean it or not?
No, nobody came.
Then
We haven't gone that far.
Who said it's
came
livable?
only
The
Monday.
adjuster said it was livable.
They're all the adjusters are saying the house is livable. Have them live there.
Yeah, so the adjuster said it's livable. She went back to her house. She wiped it, and it was black. And she's still in the house, and she's upset because she shouldn't be in the house.
If you could, I would stay out. Just a recommendation or suggestion, and fight it out later because you can't move in until it's clean. So you take whatever evidence, put it in a baggie, and put it somewhere safe in the house, so that you can show them.
And then you need to tell the adjuster that you need to call the adjuster, or call the insurance, ask for another adjuster, and say I can't move back into my house until it's clean.
Right. Yeah, because it's
You
easy
mean
for them
I
to say,
can't- And then fight about the living expense later?
sure. Yeah, it's going to be an argument either way. There's no reason you should have to live in sooty condition. That's not pre-loss.
Yeah, and then so checking with finger.
That's not good enough. They have a chem sponge that they use.
That's not even good
a
enough.
swiper or something, but the finger is the worst thing. Okay.
But a chem sponge is also like that's not super accurate, is it?
It'll show if this particular, like she said, it'll show black. Gray is dust. But when you swipe and there's a black line there, black, that's carbon. And depending on what it is, because plastics burn, polypropylenes, they are greasy. So it smears. That's evidence of car tires, batteries, cars that burn, plastics. That's all soot, that's polypropylene detected soot. So, look, there's no reason you should have to go back until it's clean. Did she agree to clean it at least?
Or she's authorizing verbally what I had just vacuumed that bunch of
Just a vacuuming?
looked like a gray pepper vacuum.
Not very
That's
nice.
it.
No,
That's
that's
it.
a problem.
And they said they weren't going to do the whole house. They were just going to do those corners.
Only
where
that
they-
four corners.
I'm sorry.
And the front of the garage door. That's it.
That's
Then
it.
I'm fine.
Where's she from? What state?
She's from Arizona.
Sure. She'll be gone next week, and then you're going to be stuck. So I would try to get it reassigned. Have you talked to any of the cleaning companies yet?
I have an appointment with somebody who is behind the curve, is behind the coastal.
Is it Restoration Management or something? Or
I
DKI?
didn't-
Serve
but
Pro,
they
Service
are
Master?
certified in the level of Serve Pro, but the local.
Okay.
And,
Anderson Group?
No, Environmental Alliance.
Oh,
H-
Oh,
H-
ARE.
ATI.
H&L.
H&L I've heard.
H&A is in San Jose.
That
That's a
was-
cleaning company, but they are coming on next Wednesday to do the test and then report. And,
I would have the adjuster there, if she's still around. Have them come back and do what's called a joint scope walkthrough, where you're there. If you want to be there, a joint scope walkthrough is all the parties are there, and you come to a verbal
so that's
agreement.
a good thing.
Yeah, and that way
With
they
the
can
cleaner.
swipe and show. Yeah, and because the cleaner wants to clean. That's how they make money. So if they can just show and justify that it needs to be cleaned, they're going to get the job.
Now, would you recommend a joint scope walkthrough with the environmental hygienist to test it? How does that work?
No, because the results have to go to a lab.
Okay. So, but you would recommend doing an environmental hygienist before the cleanup?
Well, of course.
Yeah.
Right, and
Because you
so
want to know what they're cleaning.
Yeah.
right, and a lot of adjusters won't allow for that hygienist unless you say something like, "Can you guarantee it? Can you? I have medical conditions. Like you need to."
As long
you
as
know.
it's legitimate. And you
Or-
need to be truthful. It's
Yeah.
very
So the
important.
adjust.
I'm on medical bills.
No, I hear you, man. Just it's important to be truthful.
Yeah. All right. Well, thank you guys so much for participating. If you have any other questions, we'll continue to update you.
Anything online?
Um,
Questions?
No, we just have Morris Designs, Nelson Architects. Those are some other architects that are awesome, and Tobin Schaefer is a realtor that provided that. So thank you for that. And yeah, also in doing there is going to be a shortage of labor to do the jobs. So that also you need to communicate that with your adjuster as well if you're having to rebuild to be able to get home.
And remember, watch your valuables at the house. When the cleaning actually gets done, you don't know who they've hired because there's so much work. They'll hire anybody pretty much, So you want to get your jewelry, tax records out, Social Security, anything that can be, because once they're gone, they're gone. So you want to minimize any further aggravations.
So usually you have to be out of the house. For
I
one
would,
day,
yeah.
so
Or you can stay and watch and make sure,
But
it's up
that's
to you. It's your
8
house.
hours
No
a
one
day,
can kick
yeah.
you out. It's
I'd
your home.
stay.
It's your home.
All right. Well, thank you guys. Thank
Thanks.
you so much.
Thank you so
Can I
much.
sign on your mailing list?
Yeah, this is just my
Yeah.
notes. But here you go.